Good afternoon, everyone. Naishad Gadani coming to you from Melbourne, and I'm the co-host of this amazing LinkedIn Live show that me and Caroline do it every day, Career Care Package. And today we are speaking about how to be mentally strong when you are faced with setbacks. In my LinkedIn post, I wrote about, and I was looking at many versions of when the life throws lemon at you and you make a lemonade. And there were a lot of interesting quotes around it, but so I avoided saying that. But I think it's a very interesting and very insightful story that we are going to hear from Claire around being stranded on a yacht. Yacht. Now yacht sound very fascinating. You see that on a big movies made on that, and I can spend 40 days. I can probably live my life on there. But there is a caveat to that, and that's what we are going to talk about. It's just not about being stranded, but what Claire got out of it and what really helped her, deal with those kind of isolation for 40 days and what were her, real learnings out of it. So that's why we are here. And as usual, if you are, listening to us on YouTube, please, go like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a lot of love so that me and Caroline can retire on the money that we make from the ads that come on YouTube. And if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere, please continue to, send us the comments. And especially if you got questions for Claire, please send it across because we would love to, ask those questions to Claire. And also, lastly, wherever you're listening this for, this LinkedIn Live or Facebook from, just put in the name of the city so that we know that whether we have reached the global audience or not. Before we get Claire, let's welcome Caroline Brown.
Thanks, Nash. I don't actually know what to say after all of that, but I think we need another 960 subscribers to be eligible to put ads on our YouTube channels. So we're a fair way off, but that's okay. Claire, thanks so much for joining us today. Such a fascinating story reading your blog post on Business Chicks about what happened, how you found yourself on a boat and all of the lessons that you learnt about it. But maybe a great place to start is just to tell us where this dream holiday started for you and how you ended up finding yourself stuck on the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you to both of you for having me on the show. It's a great opportunity to meet some people and share my story. I think it's not at all lost on me that our experience this year has still been a very fortunate one compared to a lot of other people. It's something that my husband and I just laugh about the experience really that we've had at the moment. Essentially last year we were living in Melbourne. We quit our jobs, we packed up our apartment, we sold all of our belongings, and we drove back to Perth, which is where we're both from, and we were relocating back to Perth as well. And we basically dropped the car off, dropped off my little sausage dog to my mum and dad to look after. And then we got on a plane again and we left for what was supposed to be kind of a dream year abroad. Basically like an adult gap year was what we were calling it. We saved for a couple of years. We scrimped, we saved, we didn't buy things, we sacrificed, all of the things that you do when you want to bring a dream to life. And then we got about 3 months into the year. And at the time we were in South America. We'd had a great couple of months. We'd hiked in Patagonia. We'd gone to Chile and Argentina and Colombia and we're learning Spanish in the Spanish school. It was great. And then all of a sudden, enter coronavirus. And everything kind of came to a screaming halt. And at that time, we actually had flown to an island called Grenada it's at the southern part of the Caribbean chain, where my twin brother and his fiance actually live on a boat. And it's funny when I tell people that I got stuck on a yacht in the Caribbean because they go, "Oh, boo-hoo!" I did not feel sorry for you at all. They imagine, they almost imagine, I think, me being on Steve Jobs's like super yacht cruiser, right, with a butler and all of these things. And I would love to say that it was like that, but their particular boat is quite it is a smaller boat. It's a 40-foot boat with 4 people living on it. So you don't have a huge amount of space. But essentially, once we arrived in Grenada, the airport closed the next day. So we couldn't. We were lucky that we were able to just get in, but we also were now no longer able to get out. So we were effectively stuck there, floating in the middle of the ocean. We were not allowed to get on land or to set foot on land for about 3.5 weeks. So the first time I set foot on land, I felt like I'd had 4 bottles of wine and was just sort of rolling back and forward like this, trying to get used to it again. We were not able to buy food. We were not able to buy supplies. We were very lucky that my brother and his fiance are very well prepared. So we lived off a lot of powdered potatoes and a lot of Spam for a little while. Can confirm, Spam's not that bad.
Okay. We'll just take the word for that one. So.
Yeah, can confirm, not so bad. But it also meant that we were very much forced to go back to basics, and it was a really good learning curve and a really good opportunity to stop and take stock of life. I mean, we didn't have access to the internet unless I was able to hack into the Wi-Fi on somebody else's boat. Don't tell anyone that. We were not able, we couldn't watch Netflix. We couldn't call people or contact people. We weren't really able to do any of the things that we take for granted when we are at home. So we were forced to go back to basics, and that meant having real, meaningful, deep conversations about the world and life. It meant reading a book. It meant meditating. It meant journaling. It meant writing a lot for me. And so through that experience, there were certainly some sacrifices that we made. We were only allowed to shower once a week for 30 seconds. We slept in an anchor locker that just has a constant fish smell. My poor husband is 6'2", so he couldn't actually fit in the bed for 2.5 months. So he basically slept like an L shape like that for 2.5 months. So, it wasn't all glamorous, but it was certainly a simple life that if you asked me if I'd go back and make the same decision again, I would.
Okay. What was the worst part of it? Was it not knowing that there was an end in sight, or what was the hardest bit of all of that, do you think?
Yeah, I think the hardest bit was the unknown, and at the time not knowing how long were we going to be here for. We had reached out a number of times to the Australian consulate asking, was there a way out? What could we do? How could we get home? And they just didn't know. The airports were closed, no flights were coming in, no flights were going out, and you weren't allowed to travel between the other islands either, so that sort of wasn't an option. So I think to answer your question, it's the unknown, and it really does then come down to accepting what is within my control and what is not within my control, and then reframing that to kind of maximise the opportunity that is available to us as much as we can.
We were talking earlier just about, being in Melbourne, and then, obviously in lots of other places there's a lockdown, and attached it, like our sense of happiness or peace goes up and down with the numbers that we see, and you realise that you're very attached to something external to give you that sense of well-being. So what did you have to draw upon? I mean, what did you do to stop your mind sort of going to the worst possible scenario? Because I know that's what I do when, I can't control things. Everything's going to be a disaster, and I have to really stop myself from going there and having those thoughts. What really worked for you in that scenario?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I look back upon now, and I have written those, I think, in the article that you've even popped in the link, around just some of the life lessons ultimately that I've learned. And I think in terms of, like, I am absolutely very much the same. It's very easy for me to go from 0 to 100 like that in terms of, this is the reality, but oh my God, this is what it could be like. So it does take a lot of, I think there's a mental framework that helps me almost step off the ledge in some senses, where I go to a place of, okay, what is the reality of the situation that I find myself in right now? What is the worst case scenario that could happen? And if that did happen, how would I deal with that? And what plan would I put in place to deal with that? And then work backwards from that. And I found that on the boat gave me quite a lot of comfort, because I was able to accept that even if the worst case scenario came to fruition, which was that we were stuck there indefinitely, and we ran out of money and we had nowhere to go, I was able to reframe that to be, well, you're not stuck, you're safe on a boat with family who do know what they're doing. They've been living there for 2 years. They know where they are and they know what they're doing. And we were, we wouldn't go hungry. Worst case scenario, we could catch some fish or something. We would find a way to survive. And I think once I was able to work back from that and focus on all of the things that I do have, which at that time was health, it was family, and it was love, ultimately. Instead of focusing on all of the things that I didn't have, I found that much, much easier to get through the day. So that was probably one of the major strategies, certainly, that I used. The other that I used a lot was, and I see this so much in people, particularly a lot of my coaching clients and people that I speak to, who say, well, I don't deserve to be upset because someone else has got it worse than me, or I don't deserve to grieve about the fact that I've lost my job, or I had to postpone my wedding, or I couldn't go on my European holiday this year. I don't deserve to be upset about that because somebody else has lost a parent or a child, or are in hospital themselves. And I think that is just wrong. It is absolutely wrong. We all deserve to grieve for whatever loss we have encountered this year, and whether that loss is a trip overseas that you'd planned and saved for however many years, or whether it is a wedding that you've postponed, or whether it is a job that you've been made redundant from. Yes, there are people that perhaps may be struggling more, but it doesn't discount how you feel, and it doesn't mean that how you feel and your sense of loss doesn't matter. And so I think once I was able to move past that and accept that it was okay to grieve for the fact that our year had imploded in front of our face, and I had no idea where we were going, how long we were going to be stuck there. It was all outside of my control. I allowed myself to grieve, but then I accepted it. I accepted that this is the reality now that I do find myself in, and how can I lean in to this reality and make the most of it. And once I was able to do that, it was a real turning corner. It no longer was about being stuck, floating in the middle of the ocean. It became more about, here I am, I'm safe. How many times in my life will I really get the opportunity to be cut off from the world? And what can I learn from this? And so they were probably the major things that I did during that time to kind of help myself, lift myself out. And don't get me wrong, I definitely had my days where I had serious adult tanties. But your ability to allow yourself to do that, lift yourself out, and then lean back in, that's what gets people through.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it looks as I was talking to you earlier, Claire, I've got a water phobia, and I can't imagine living on a yacht for 40 days. It's just staggering. But I know as you were talking, I was also kind of going back and reflecting my lockdown, and I was in India at that time. And,
Yeah.
that's what me and my wife would always be grateful for, at that time, that, grateful that we are safe and sound in our home. That our kids were happy, healthy. Obviously, there was, I could have done that. I could have gone in India, traveled over there, all the plans, everything will, absolutely nullified. But that's what we were grateful about. If I can sort of ask you about, because what works in that time? Did you make a routine in the day? Did you create new habits to help you to sail through this time? And what, because as what worked for me and how LinkedIn
Mm,
Live was came about, that it was how I started my day in India, right? It's 10:30 in the morning. Obviously, when the schools was on, I would wake up at
mm,
4 o'clock, yeah, India time AM, so that my elder one can start study. But at 10:30, that was routine for me. Sit down, do this LinkedIn Live, and it starts my day.
mm.
So, what are some of the things that you created that helped you to create? Because it's ultimately those habits and those changes that you made on the way.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think routine is definitely, it's essential. It was essential for us on the boat. It was essential for myself and my husband when we finally did get back to Australia and we were in hotel quarantine for those 2 weeks. And I think that it's essential for anyone right now who whose world has just been thrown up in the air and perhaps they've just lost their job or they've been made redundant and they're looking for work. I think routine is essential because when everything that we know is ripped out from under us, we feel lost. We feel lost, and particularly people that were working and had jobs, and that was, for the most part, your 9 to 5. All of a sudden, I've got this big gaping void there, and now I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with my time. And then add to that the fact that I can't leave the house, or in my case, I couldn't leave 40 feet of floating space. What do I do? And so for us, when we were on the boat, we tried to really stick to a routine of getting up at the same time every day. For me, the first thing that I would do would be to get up and go out, go above deck, and I would sit at the front of the boat for 20 minutes and meditate. And I'll be honest and say, well, I'm very aware of the benefits of meditation. There are
That's
benefits to
hilarious.
meditation. I'm very aware of the benefits of meditation, and I have done it on and off before. This was the first time in my life that I truly saw the power on my mental health and my well-being from doing it every day. So for me, that was the first thing every morning that I did without fail to get myself off to a good start. And then following that, I would try to do some exercise. And when I say doing exercise, I had about half a metre by a half a metre space to do that in. But you find a way. If you've got will, there's a way. And so I would try to do some exercise where I could. We would then have breakfast together as a family in the morning. And then during the day, largely we would read, we would write, but I tried very hard to still time block. Time blocking is something that I do in my business, I've done in previous corporate roles, and so I think it's still important to do that in your day, even when you don't have, all of the things that you're used to having. So time block, okay, for the next hour and a half, I'm going to read this book. For an hour after that, I'm going to sit and I'm going to enjoy my lunch. For an hour after that, that's the time of day that I go and I do some writing or whatever it might be. But I found that time blocking was very important. And even if I then take that example into hotel quarantine, that even then became things including, getting up and having a shower. I don't use that as an example on the boat because I wasn't allowed to have a shower. But when we got into hotel quarantine, we would get up every day, we had a shower, and we changed into different clothes. And we made the bed, and we made it our mission to not sit on the hotel bed all day. We would sit in the armchair that we had, or I would sit at the study desk that we had, so that we were able to keep some kind of separation between sleep time, bedtime, and daytime. Between, I'm not going to live in my pajamas all day because that is for nighttime. During the day, I'm going to put on my clothes and I'm going to dress for what I want to achieve in my day, which was some movement, some exercise, and some work for me. But I think it's little things like that that really make a huge difference to your mental health and your ability to feel that you have still got some meaning and fulfillment in your day. I think it's critical.
It's a funny
Yeah, if I can, sorry, KB, if I can draw the same in KB, then
Mm,
we'll take the comments. Is if you're looking for work, and I think there's something really powerful into this, and I see oftentimes, and I should acknowledge on the outset that it's not an easy task right now to look for work, and
Mm,
I'm not at all discounting the challenges that people who lost the jobs are facing right now. Given the challenges, I think creating a certain routine, certain 3 4 important elements of your day, I think that
mm,
gives you that stability in your thinking, that gives you that amount of power to act on something. Because even though you do not have routine, time will flow on, things will come up. It's like if you build roads, right? The cars will come to the roads. There is no denial into that, right? So similarly, I think it's very essential to create some kind of a routine. And I'll conclude with this, that even when we were in quarantine, we made sure that we take a walk from one room to the other room every day, half an hour, because
you had
I
two
knew.
rooms?
Yeah, that's right, two
Oh,
kids and two
you
adults.
were
That's
spoiled.
so we would do that, because I think it was very important to keep that momentum, keep feeling like that. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
feels, because is that you don't have anything else to do, and there's Netflix and there's these things available. You can
Mm,
switch on and wake up at 8, and by 8 p.m. you watch the whole House of Cards, but it
yeah.
hasn't made any kind of a difference to
Hmm.
that. So yeah, that's what my observation. Yes, KB.
Dave has just said clearly someone who hasn't been to Italy and make limoncello. That sounds delicious right
Oh,
now.
that
So,
does. Sounds delightful. If you could send some, Dave, that would be great.
exactly. I was going to say, just this thing about routine, I find it intriguing because I feel like as human beings, we get a sense of, you mentioned sort of a sense of purpose, but that purpose
Mm,
sometimes comes from when the routine is leading to something. Like you've got a
mm,
routine to make something better. If you exercise, it's to get a bit fitter. If you meditate,
mm.
it's to reduce stress. Or how did you sort of let go of needing that? Because you've had, obviously a very successful corporate career, and
Mm.
launching your own business takes a lot of ambition. But how did you let go of the need to actually achieve something in that routine? Or did you feel that routine was, getting you towards something? Or did you just sort of
Yeah.
let go of that?
I think a little bit of both, to be honest. I think I probably reframed what my definition of achieving things was. I mean,
Mm,
in the environment when we were stuck on the boat with nowhere to go and largely no one to connect with in the outside world sometimes, my definition of achievement just became very much around what did I do today to stimulate my mind?
mm,
What conversations did I have today with my family and or my husband that were fulfilling and provoked new thinking? There
mm,
were. I'm a firm, and I'm very much a glass half full type person, but I'm a firm believer that you can find achievement in every day, even
mm,
when you don't know what it is even perhaps that you're aiming for right now. And that was
mm,
largely where we were. I didn't know how long we were going to be there for, or what it was all about, where we were going, but I did know that I was still able to find purpose in every day, and I was
mm,
still able to learn something every day. And so maybe the achievement for me was just actually slowing down to take
mm.
all of that in. Because I mean, how many times in your life, hopefully this is the only time, but that the world comes to a screaming halt and we're
Mm,
kind of all forced to stop. And I sincerely hope that this is the only time that it happens. But
mm,
the silver lining out of it, I do believe, is that it has forced us all to slow down
mm,
and breathe and think about, where am I at? Some of us have been forced into that because we've lost
mm,
our jobs, absolutely. Some of us have not lost our jobs, but perhaps what those jobs look like now is a very different
mm.
landscape to what they were before. But the theme that is the same is that we've all had to slow down
Yeah.
and breathe and kind of look around. And so I think that in itself personally is an achievement.
Mm. Absolutely. So I've got a couple more comments. Ryan Swanstrom says, this looks like an interesting topic. I hope you're enjoying it, Ryan. Well, I think it is. William says hi. And somebody who says is a LinkedIn user, probably watching on Facebook or YouTube, says, hello, everyone. So hi. I wanted to ask you about, so there's 4 people on this boat, right? How did you end up not killing each other? Because you've got to, you know, your mind can play tricks on you, and those relationships will be really intensified. How did you get along, and how did you resolve conflict if conflict came up?
Yeah, look, great question. Everybody's always curious about this one, I think. You do, and yes, we had 4 people in 40 feet of floating space with nowhere to get off for a little while. I think, look, I think the beauty was that one of those people for me was my twin brother. We shared a uterus, so sharing 40 feet is a breeze, right? But in all seriousness, absolutely, challenges come up and conflict comes up. But I think it was actually quite funny. My mum, one of the first questions my mum asked me was, now, how did you and your brother go? Did you get along? And I was like, Mum, come on. And actually, surprisingly, my brother and I were perfect. We didn't have any sort of conflict. If anything, it was probably the spouses with each other from time to time would have some disagreements, as I'm sure many people can identify with when you're in a small space with your spouse for 60 days straight without a break. And for some people watching this, it's longer than that. There are definitely times where just them breathing causes you frustration. But I think the very fact that you've got nowhere to go, so you've got to sort it out, right? And I actually think that was a blessing, and I think it is something that I want to take with me into what I'm calling the new world, is to not let conflict fester, and to make sure that if something does come up and there's a tough conversation that needs to be had, that we are vulnerable and we put ourselves out there and we lean in and we have that conversation and then we move on, because holding on to it does not achieve anything. So, the challenge obviously on the boat was that perhaps if my brother and his fiance might have had a disagreement, my husband and I would discreetly try to move away. But, where do you go? Like 10 feet that way where you can still hear everything. But act like I can't hear you. There wasn't a lot of a room for that. But again, I think the beauty of that is that it forces you to deal with issues, and we deal with them now, and then we all move forward. And so it definitely increased all of our ability to deal with conflict and just to build that resilience up, right? Like, we're all in challenging times. People are frustrated. Somebody might have woken up that morning and this was a bad day for them, but tomorrow it might be a bad day for me. And so we all just have to sometimes also just cut each other some slack, right? And cut ourselves some slack too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
Absolutely
Nicholas,
agree. I think we got Poonam. Poonam is saying that it's a reminder of a movie Castaway, which is obviously one of the famous movies of Tom Hanks. Which is understandable. I think it was probably a bit better than Castaway because there are 4 people here, and you didn't have to use the 2 stones to light a fire, at least in these circumstances. That's what Tom Hanks had to do
That
in
is true. I
Castaway.
probably looked a bit like Tom Hanks by the end of this 2.5 months, though. I will say that.
All right. Nikos is saying Claire is a real deal, an amazing leader with heart, empathy, unstoppable focus, and well done, everyone. And super interesting conversation. Thanks, Nikos, for your comments. Now, if we now sort of move away from that experience and now look at, because you are right now helping with a lot of in your executive coaching practice. Tell us about your observation of what professionals are feeling right now. What are some of the themes that you are seeing emerging, in your discussions, Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm seeing a real variance, and I'm working with clients all over the world at the moment, from Europe to the US to Canada, Singapore, Melbourne, and the one common theme that we're all dealing with at the moment is obviously COVID, but the way that people are dealing with that, and particularly professionals, is very different. I've got some clients who are absolutely thriving at the moment. Their businesses are growing. They're taking on more work. They've pivoted, which is probably one of the most common words we've used this year, up there with unprecedented. They've pivoted. They've opened their minds up and they've said, okay, this is the situation. How are we going to navigate this? And so they're really thriving. They are, yes, it is uncertain. Yes, they are taking risks. Yes, they are launching into the unknown and they don't know what result that's going to yield, but they're doing it anyway because they realize that the alternative of doing nothing is no longer an option. So I'm seeing that. And then I am also seeing the other side of the coin, which is people who have recently been made redundant, recently lost their jobs, and they are feeling lost, and they are feeling stuck, and they are feeling a sense of overwhelm at, well, what do I do now, right? I'm seeing, the media is painting a picture like we've never seen before. The data that's out there around unemployment rates and how long people are going to struggle to get jobs, et cetera, is also painting a negative picture. And so when we surround ourselves with this, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by it. And so I'm working with people at the moment that are having all of those feelings. But the work that I do is to start them to help unpicking and unpacking where they're at and to carve a path forward. We need to stop saying, I don't know, I can't, I'm never going to get a job, or I don't know the path forward. I don't know what to do. You do know what to do, just maybe not right now in this moment, but you do know. And what I do is create the time and the space for people to really start reflecting on what that looks like for them. And we go right back to basics sometimes, right? We go right back to, okay, what do we need to do right now for survival? What do you need to do to pay your bills and put food on the table? Let's start there. Let's start with easing the things that are keeping you awake at night, which for most people, that's what it is, right? It's the fear that I can't feed my family, and it's the fear that I won't be able to keep a roof over our heads. So let's start there. What do we need to do to make sure that we can do that for as long as possible? And then we start rebuilding. And I think once people can see, okay, I can pay my bills and I can pay my mortgage for at least the next couple of months. It might not be pretty, but I can do it. That starts to give them a way forward, and that starts to give them a little bit of security to know that I can get through that. Now, what's next? What's the next thing that I need to do? Where do I need to start looking? Who do I need to speak to? All of those sorts of things. So they're polar opposite extremes, right? The two that I've just explained. But that is really what I'm seeing at the moment. It's the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, both with challenges, both filled with fear, both filled with uncertainty of what's to come, but everybody is in the same boat in terms of trying to navigate this change and kind of work through it together.
It's really interesting because it is sort of, when you're really productive and you're, striving forward and thinking about accepting stuff, that can be a fear reaction as well. It may not be the right direction that you should be taking. And I know that kind of behaviour, we tend to applaud that and go, that's amazing. But I'm just wondering about, the thing that keeps people stuck, that fear that keeps people stuck in the one place. How do you go about unpacking or getting people to are they able to easily identify that, or do you have sort of some exercises at work for people that help them unpack the thing that is the most concern to them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to reflection, to be honest. And a lot of the time, sometimes people are very aware that they're stuck, right? They can feel it. If they feel it every day in their struggle to get up in the morning, or they roll from the bed where I've watched Netflix to the couch where I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to roll to the fridge and I can't see an end to this cycle, right? Like that is a part of feeling stuck, is not knowing, well, what do I do now? And then there are some people that are are very aware of it, but they just are overwhelmed and they're not sure where to start. So, I mean, some of the first things that I tend to do with people is actually to get them to map out their week. Let's start fresh tomorrow, and let's print, like, whatever, you know, however you are motivated. For some people that's visual, for some people they are happy just to they want to draw it out and stick it somewhere they can see it. For some people, they're happy to have it in their minds. But let's actually start, to our conversation earlier around routine. Let's start by getting you in a routine. Let's get you up at a certain time. What are you going to do when you get up? You're going to get up, you're going to shower, you're going to change. If you're looking for a job, you're going to spend an hour in the morning having a look on Seek and checking out what's there. Then you're going to get up and you're going to take some deep breaths and you're going to go for a walk. But it is about rebuilding momentum a lot of the time. And the way that we build momentum is by taking small steps forward. If we only look at the giant tasks that lay ahead of us, which is I must get a new job, that can seem overwhelming for people. But if we just start with, I'm going to get up this morning and I'm going to shower, and then I'm going to have a look on Seek for an hour and apply for one job. Then I'm going to reward myself for that, and I'm going to go for a walk, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to look at you know, what content can I contribute to today? What companies can I follow? What's out there? But if we break that up, and by the end of the week, when I check in with them again, they have felt like they have had more motivation in that week and a greater sense of control than perhaps they've had in the month prior, purely because they started taking very small steps forward. And momentum breeds momentum. So it's about starting with just one small thing and building on that. And that's where I start with people.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, I think, because you can get lost in that you need to be motivated to make a step, whereas actually it's, like you say, it is the making of the step that builds that motivation, that, you know, gives you the momentum, gives you the motivation and that type of thing. So, yeah. Nish, you look like you're about
No. I think you know, what I wanted to know is around the aspect of, you know, building connections and networking also. I think, you know, well, you know, in the pre-COVID days, we would go and meet for a coffee and do all sorts of innovative stuff. You know, right now, and as we all also know, I'll probably share a recent, you know, an article by PageUp, which is a CRM app for a large CRM app for applicant tracking system and all those things, and they found that Coles filled out hundreds of vacancies through family and friends referral scheme. Around 2,500 people got jobs in these times just through family and friends, right? So there's a huge push on networking, Claire, and you've been a, you know, active participant in these discussions also. Share some of the thinking around networking and relationships, how critical it is now, and what people should be doing in terms of building and reaching out to people.
Yeah. For me, networking is fundamental. It is fundamental, but I put a caveat on that, and I say networking is one piece. Building genuine connections is more important. There's not a day that goes by at the moment where I don't wake up in the morning and I probably got between 40 and 50 LinkedIn requests from people all over the world who I don't know and I've never met, and they don't leave me any kind of note. It's just an ad. And I love connecting with new people. I love hearing people's journeys and I love hearing people's stories. But if we're really trying to make a mark for ourselves, and if we're really trying to be front of mind when somebody is advertising a new role or they're putting something out there, we need to be doing more than just going onto LinkedIn, searching every human resources professional in the world and adding them on LinkedIn. We need to be building real, authentic, genuine connections with people, and we need to do it now. Ideally, we need to be doing it before we actually need their help, and reaching out to people that are in our network or people that we've worked with in the past. Let's reach out to them now and ask them how they are, what's going on in their world, and ask them genuinely not just, how are you? Hey, can you help me get a job? Let's
Mm.
start building connections with people and then maintaining those relationships for the entirety of our careers, not just when we need somebody's help to get a job. And so that is something that I say to people all the time is build your networks. Building them is one piece, maintaining them is another. And it is times like this, it is times like COVID where times are tough and people are struggling and people really are in need of help, that those relationships, they come into their own. And so, yes, it's absolutely much harder at the moment to go out and meet people because obviously we can't do that. But LinkedIn is a fabulous tool for meeting people online. There are questionable groups on Facebook, but there are some valuable groups on Facebook that are designed and there to help people find meaningful job opportunities as well. There are university platforms that people can go to that list jobs for people. There are lots of opportunities online that people can go to and contribute and become a part of that are more meaningful than just going down a list of people and adding them all on LinkedIn and then spamming them all with your resume.
It's funny with people that watch us pretty regularly. This is an example of those forums that people can connect in and chat in, and it's been lots of lovely little stories that have come out of people that have connected from the comments and things like that. So, yeah, I think it is a challenge because you can't do it face to face, but then the whole world's online so at the moment, now, so you've got no excuse.
That's right.
So what about now for you, Claire? Like, do you feel like your experience during COVID has fundamentally changed you and the way that you see your business or see your career or your life?
Definitely. Absolutely. I think that, my year, as I had said to you earlier, completely blew up in my face. But there have been so many blessings that have come out of this year and so many experiences that I have had and opportunities that I have had to work with people that I really don't believe would have happened had the sequence of events that happened to me not have taken place. For example, while I was on the boat, I wrote an article for LinkedIn, and it was basically an open letter to HR or to people working in the people space at the moment, because my heart was just breaking for the experiences and knowing it very well, having lived it myself, my heart was breaking for them, knowing what they were all going through. And so I wrote this article while I was on the boat, actually, and it was very honest, it was very vulnerable, but I wrote it and then I posted it. And because we were on the boat, I then wasn't able to get back online again for about a week. And then it actually just coincided with us finally getting a call from the Australian consulate that we were able to get home. So by the time I had started the journey with my husband to come back home, which took us 4 days, 5 flights and 6 airports, I logged back on to LinkedIn. And at this point, this article was sitting at about 75,000 views, about 500 comments, and I'd received over 100 emails from people all over the world saying, I feel like you're in my brain and I feel like you understood me. And that article now is at 270,000 views, not views, so reads, 4,000 shares. Wow. I've received over 1,000 emails from people all over the world, and out of that has actually stemmed a lot of work from people that are like, help me. I feel like I have a connection with you and I think you understand my world. I just need someone to talk to. So I use this as an example because it could be really easy for me to say that this year, went totally balls up for me and I didn't get to do any of the things that I wanted, or I can look at it from the lens of, well, sure, this year did not pan out how I intended, but the learnings that I got out of it and the opportunities that I got out of it and the people that I've now been able to connect with and meet along the way, maybe it wasn't the adventure that I'd planned, but maybe it was the adventure that was more destined for me at this point in my life. I don't know. And I just think that is a frame that we have to look at things from in order to be able to keep moving forward.
Yeah, what a great story.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think me and Caroline also reflect on our journey of starting LinkedIn Live, as well. On what premises did we start and what the shape that it has taken after 120 episodes,
Yeah.
and we continuously look back and think, it's a thing that we created for people outside. We are not the real avengers here. The guests that we bring to the show,
Mm,
they are the real avengers, because that's what we wanted to do, is to put the spotlight on people, like yourself and a lot of other people that we have discussed, and we want to see their story of hope and optimism, in this
yeah.
really, strange time that we find ourselves in. Look, Claire, thank you very much for joining us, and you are in a beautiful part of
I am.
Australia, right now, and stay there until the stage for restrictions ends, in Melbourne. But we would definitely love to catch up whenever you are in Melbourne, because I think you've got a
Yeah.
fascinating story. And what I think the best part is that you've learned immensely and you've been very generous in sharing those insights. So
Thank
thank
you
you very
both for
much,
having
Claire.
me. And I think just to reiterate what you were doing is, I honestly think it's fantastic. So kudos to you both for showing up every day for 120 days, all just for the purpose of helping other people. I think it's a beautiful thing. Well done to both of you.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so if you're watching this on LinkedIn, if you can follow the hashtag career care package, I think we're up to 63. So I'm a counter. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube and you like what you see, please subscribe. Thank you again, Claire. It's been fantastic to
No
have
problem.
you. Tomorrow we're doing Ask Us Anything, aren't we, Nash? So any question at all that you have about your job search, from resumes to LinkedIn to making your cat famous on Instagram, whatever, please please jump in and ask, and look forward to seeing you all.
Excellent. Yes, so we will do this again tomorrow, 23 hours after. And yes, tomorrow will be the floor will be yours. You can ask gazillion questions, about jobs, careers, and we have already received a resume for a review. So we will be, dismantling the resume live on the show. So thank you to the person who has shared that, with us. And if you want us to review your resume, please keep sending it to us, and we will try to slot them in on a Friday, which benefits everyone. So until we see you tomorrow, if you are in Victoria, don't forget to put your mask on. If you're lucky like Claire, please still look after your family and stay happy and healthy. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.